Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Catherine Hill, and today I am joined by Bruno Pirecki to talk about his debut novel, Town Law. Bruno, thank you so much for joining me today.
Catherine, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be with you.
I'm so excited. Let's start out by, if you don't mind, just telling the viewers what Town Law is about.
Sure. Yeah, Town Law is actually the central character in an adventure that has its origins in the on tribal lands in the mountains of the Pacific Northwest. And it's a story of love and romance and legacy. There's a lot of native lore in it. There's justice, and also ultimately it's a story about hope. And it's woven into this coming-of-age tapestry of strong female characters and native lore and ancient wisdom. And there's also a little bit of creepiness in it as well, in the adventure and some romance. And it pretty much has all the things I enjoy reading in a book when I'm curled up with one.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So there was some press on Town Law as well. There was an article in your Williamson in which I think you talked about how the characters had been there, the story had been there in your mind for a while. Where did it come from?
Yeah, it was brewing for quite some time. And in fact, when I was looking back at some notes, the earliest notes were about 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And what I did was I sat down and I just, these characters kept bothering me, and to the point of me, okay, well, maybe there's something here, and I sat down and I started writing. And I knew I had the nuggets of something. These characters were coming to life, and I got busy with work and overwhelmed with daily stress. And I put it up, and I would pick it up. I would pick the story back up periodically over a few years. I'd put it down for 2 years or so, pick it back up, start writing into it. And then it got to the place where the characters would not leave me alone. They kept bothering me and bothering me and bothering me. So I knew I had to write them. And we put ourselves in a position where I could write, and I dedicated 3 years to write seriously to finish the book. And that was really it. That's how it came about.
Wow. So there's kind of these stereotypes of writers. There's like the architect who plans everything out before they write, and then there's the archaeologist who kind of just writes as they discover new things. Which would you say that you identify more with? Definitely
the latter.
Okay.
For sure. As this was my first foray into writing a novel,
okay,
I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I just wrote as it came, and I let the characters reveal themselves to me. And as they revealed themselves, I told their story.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's really what happened.
So how did you get into the place or the mindset where these characters could come to you?
That is about quieting yourself. And that means, for me, it's turning off devices. It really is finding that place of focus. And that gets easier with time as you make that appointment with yourself. There's a friend of mine told me a long time ago, if you're going to write, you have to write.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's one word a day, if it's a sentence a day, write it.
Yeah.
And what happens when you're faithful to that practice is that you find the groove or that slot where you know you're in tune. And that gets easier as you are faithful to that practice. So really that's it for me. It's turning everything off. It's emptying my mind.
Yeah.
And then allowing them to show up.
Okay, that makes sense. That's really interesting. So you had mentioned earlier about the native lore and all the different themes. What role did research and travel play into this? Did you go to Idaho or to Princeton, or what did that look like?
I've been to Idaho a bunch. I grew up in that area.
Okay.
And the Seattle area, of course, spent a lot of time in Princeton, but in my upbringing, it was steeped in native lore. And I was, in school, we had a pretty good course load on native culture.
Oh, wow.
So I spent a lot of time there. I spent a lot of time in those mountains. And I've always had a fondness for it.
Yeah.
And an affinity for it. The research angle of it was done most of it, when I was doing research, was done in Princeton at the Firestone Library.
Okay.
And I actually wrote the entire Princeton section of the book at the Firestone.
Wow. So why Princeton?
Princeton's it's always kind of held this little fondness for me. I grew up as a latchkey kid, and our YMCA in the heart of downtown Seattle at 4th and Marion was designed architecturally in that kind of that fashion, that Ivy League fashion.
Okay.
And I always, from my first trip to Princeton to visit friends, I just fell in love with the place.
Wow.
And it was a wonderful place for me to kind of sit and, again, just kind of empty myself, and especially when you're writing younger pieces of life, to go back to those days of the YMCA for me, which was very full of wonderment. And it was nostalgia in that way.
Oh, that's really cool. So do you have a favorite character or character that you identify most with?
Yeah, that changes every day.
Okay.
It really does. There are aspects of all these characters that are very fond to me. There's the wisdom of Shelock, the guidance of Myra Three Moons, the courage of Town, the faithfulness or steadfast hand of his dad, Daniel.
Yeah.
The wit of Carla. Audrey's just kind of, girth and half the way she likes to carry herself, or her confidence. There's so much in there. The kindness of Mary. There is so much with each of the characters, and it's something that I really value in writing and also in reading. I really enjoy good character development, and that's probably one of the things I'm most happy with. I think I told their stories very well in this. I think I was faithful to what they were telling me to write.
Absolutely. I was actually just describing that the other day to a friend, where I said, the character development is what stands out to me, because there's just so much richness in them.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what would you say was most challenging about the writing process?
Wow. I would say not knowing what the next step was.
Okay.
I mean, in this case, I was writing blind. The example I'll use is I'm writing another book again, or another novel.
Okay.
And I understand the process now, and I'm a lot more relaxed in doing it. Yeah. And I would say that was probably it, not knowing what the next step was. It was also not knowing the full story arc, because I just wrote blindly. I wrote in a way where they revealed the story to me as I wrote. It wasn't any linear fashion at all. I wrote in these giant loops, and it ended up knitting together. And there is a part when you're writing a novel, and this is 117,000 and something words. I mean, there's a lot of words in here. And at some point, you can just keep writing and writing and writing and writing, and you can't do that. You have to grab it and cinch it up. Otherwise, you're going to end up with Tolstoy or something like that, or Pillars of the Earth, and So is there something that stands out to you that you're doing differently with your second work than what you did in your first? Yes. Technically, as far as writing goes, I'm actually storyboarding the writing as I'm writing. And I understand that there are, myself now, I do understand that the way that I write and the way that I think and the way that I kind of open myself and channel in these characters is that it helps me if I have a touch point, if I'm writing towards this point. And so in this latest book I'm writing, I do know where the ending is. Okay. And I also know where the midpoint will be in the book. So I'm writing to these points, but even though that's in there as kind of my little rule that's making it a lot easier to write this book, and I do have a self-imposed timeline to be done with it by the end of the year, and that's aggressive. Yeah. But even though I've got these touch points here, it doesn't mean that I can't write outside of that. Okay. And make room for an expansion or a retraction. Yeah. So when you understand the rules entirely, you can break those rules or bend them and make them flex. And a character could say, hey, that's not the way. And at that point, you have to you got to yield to the character.
Yeah.
It doesn't come together unless they show up.
Yeah. So setting the boundaries so that way you know you can operate within or without them.
Right.
So, yeah.
And that's really, that is really key.
Yeah.
We'll see. I hope this works out this way.
Yeah.
For me. It's an experiment.
So is it a sequel, or will there be a sequel?
It isn't. It's a standalone.
Okay.
It is that it takes place. Much of it takes place in the same timeline. So there may be a cameo or two.
Okay.
In this book, and the coming book is called The House of Long Shadows, and that's the working title of it at this point. But it's another magical story, and I'm really excited about it. So, but with Town Law, I've been asked for a sequel. I kind of want readers to be able to write the sequel.
Ooh, okay.
I like that. I like that option for the readers that get into it. If I were approached to do a television series, a lot of people have said that this needs to be a Netflix deal or something like that. Is what they've said. I would entertain writing for that to a degree.
Yeah. Cool.
So anyway, that's...
Yeah. Well, I felt like when I read it, I could go either way in the sense of, oh, I would love to hear more, and at the same time, it feels satisfying at the end. So
That's great
I almost
to hear.
don't know if I want more because it's so satisfying as it is. So, so if people want to follow you on social media to see what you're up to, where is the best place to do that?
Instagram. And that's Bruno.Pirecki.
All right.
At Instagram.
Pirecki. And then where is the best place to buy a copy of Town Law?
If you're local, Landmark Booksellers on Main Street down here in Franklin. They can also accommodate online purchases as well. So Amazon isn't your only choice, and it's great to support an independent bookstore, especially in this climate. So, and if you're placing an Amazon order, you can find it on Amazon, and I would love it if you would write a review for me as well.
Awesome. All right. So Amazon, Landmark Booksellers, both locally, and Landmark sells online as well?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yeah, they
Great.
ship all over the country.
Perfect.
Also, Town Law is great for fall book clubs.
Oh, yeah.
The opening scene takes place in mid-October.
Yes.
And it is that kind of creepy little thing that goes on to open the book, and it's great. And if somebody were to use Town Law within their book club locally, meaning the Nashville area, Franklin, Brentwood, Nashville, Spring Hill, whatever, I'd be honored to attend a club.
Oh, that sounds amazing. So, all right, if you're in the Nashville or Franklin area or greater Nashville area, definitely consider Town Law for a fall book club. Great autumnal reading. So, awesome. Check it out. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Catherine, thank you so much for having me.
It's been great, and thank you all for watching. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you in the next video.
Thanks.